Meanwhile, a pair of recent collaborators on The Departed had started a war. A bidding war, that is. Producer Brad Pitt and leading man Leonardo DiCaprio both wanted to buy the film rights to the memoirs of Jordan Belfort. The Wolf of Wall Street ultimately went to Leonardo, who had forked out $1 million for it, and immediately sent it to Martin. The director was intrigued by the project, and the duo went around offering it to every Hollywood studio. But the story, full of drugs, sex, and obscenities, not to mention a very dubious protagonist, failed to attract an investment.
I think it's awful.
The search for a buyer dragged on, and when Scorsese was sent a script based on another novel, the time had come to make a decision. The story was fascinating, and Martin immediately sent it to DiCaprio. The actor happened to be familiar with the author's work and had seen the film adaptations of Mystic River and Gone Baby Gone. The right to Denise Lehane's Shutter Island belonged to Phoenix Pictures, a tiny film studio that did have a couple of hits to its name, David Fincher's Zodiac and Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line. The company's producers were looking for well-known directors and serious stories. The prospect of having a noir thriller by the likes of this dynamic duo gave the project an almost automatic green light.
Crazy people, they're the perfect subjects. They talk, nobody listens.
Plus, in the coming months, Max von Sydow, Ben Kingsley, Michelle Williams, and Emily Mortimer would join the cast.
Who are these men?
But there was a toss-up for the role of Teddy Daniels' partner between Robert Downey Jr. and Josh Brolin. But the director's mind was changed by a letter from a fan who admired Martin's genius and offered his services whenever he could, and at any price.
Can't wait.
This fan was Mark Ruffalo, and although his methods were unconventional, they landed him the role of Chuck Ayul.
All they had to do was fake an escape to get you here, and now they have you. Now they have us both, here, now!
As usual, before heading out to the shooting locations, Scorsese conducted a 2-week rehearsal, where he encouraged improvisation and rewrote the script. This is where the last line of the film was born. The novel's original ending had come a minute earlier.
Which would be worse? To live as a monster? Or to die as a good man?
Shutter Island is one of the few films in cinematic history that was created with the intention that it would be watched more than once.
I've tried to put little things in that on first viewing you might think is strange, but it doesn't raise a red flag, you know?
Sorry, Doctor. You don't happen to have an aspirin, do you?
Prone to headaches, Marshal.
The main characters, supporting characters, and even the guards played 2 different roles.
Marshal Daniels.
Doctor.
Marshal Orr. Thank you, Deputy Warden. That'll be all.
Every scene and every line can be interpreted 2 different ways.
The old school believes in surgical intervention, psychosurgery, procedures like the transorbital lobotomy.
Especially the minute details of the opening sequence. Nervous security personnel and unusual holster problems for a federal marshal. Ruffalo's character was the most distinct example of this kind of dualism.
Why was that a big deal?
At first, he plays a strange but devoted partner.
Everything about this place stinks of government ops. What if they wanted you here?
Bullshit.
Only to take on the guise of a caring physician later on.
What's wrong with you?
No wonder the title of the film, Shutter Island, is an anagram for 2 phrases at once: truths denials and truths and lies. The effect that water and fire have on the main character is also surprising. Until the end of the film, it's not clear why being near water makes Teddy feel sick.
It's a lot of water. Water.
And Andrew doesn't trust fire.
What the hell, boss? I'm your partner, for Christ's sake. We just met, Chuck.
And of course, the seeming errors of continuity cause the audience to question whether they themselves are losing their minds.
Thank you, Marshal.
The scenery itself was designed to reflect the protagonist's inner world, confused and illogical.
When you go inside, it's like you're inside your brain.
Dante Ferretti did a tremendous job. The mental hospital is based on the recollections of the project's technical consultant, Dr. James Gilligan, who had worked in institutions for the mentally ill for 30 years.
So I was asked to talk to the set designer and describe to him what the old Bridgewater had been like in the 1950s.
The red brick building on your right is Ward A, the male ward.
Ward B, the female ward, is the one on your left. Ward C is that building on the bluffs.
Of course, such a location doesn't actually exist, so Shutter Island had to be pieced together from 3 separate places: Pedex Island, the city of Nahant, and the Medfield Psychiatric Hospital. Scenes featuring rocky cliffs were created using CGI, with the exception of digital cameras for the first time in the director's career. The film used the latest cinematic technology. The musical component of the film was a serious experiment by Martin. There was no original score with a composer. Instead, Scorsese brought in his friend Robbie Robertson, who also happened to be one of the best guitarists on the planet. Robbie handpicked and compiled a selection of unique pieces by contemporary classical composers to transform what was happening on screen. A month before the October premiere, Paramount Pictures, who had sold the distribution rights, postponed the film's release to mid-February of the following year. This reduced the thriller's competition to a minimum, allowing it to bring in $40 million on its opening weekend, and almost $300 million over the next 2 months. The highest earnings in the director's career. But everything comes at a cost, even money.
Hey, you're kidding me.
Due to the film's debut being pushed back, it became ineligible to compete for awards. The Golden Globes had already passed, and candidates for the Oscars had to be submitted much more in advance. Of course, the film could have been eligible for the following year's ceremonies, but doing so would have been an extremely rare exception for a studio.
I've been hearing this fantasy for 2 years now. I know every detail.
At least the director could add this project's financial success to his list of achievements. Hey, do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you.